What happens when one of Hollywood's most composed stars loses his cool on live television? The answer is unfolding right now, and trust me, you need to hear every word of this. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think about celebrities speaking their minds on live TV. Now let's dive into what just went down on CBS This Morning. The camera cuts to Gayle King sitting across from George Clooney in the studio, and right from the start, something feels different. There is tension in the air that even the audience can sense. Gayle begins with what seems like a standard opening question. "George, thank you for being here. I want to talk about your latest project. But first, I think our viewers are really curious about something. You have been very vocal about certain political issues lately, and some people are saying that celebrities like yourself should stay in your lane. What do you say to that?" George shifts in his seat, and there is already a flicker of something in his eyes. He responds carefully at first. "Well, Gayle, I appreciate the question, but I think the premise is flawed. The idea that being an actor means you forfeit your right to have opinions about the world you live in, that is not how democracy works. We are citizens first, and citizens have not just the right, but the responsibility to speak up about things that matter." Gayle nods, but then she leans forward slightly. "But George, you have to admit, when you are as wealthy and as privileged as you are, some people might say you are out of touch with the average American's concerns. Do you ever worry that your platform gives you a megaphone that maybe drowns out the voices of people who are actually affected by these issues day to day?" There is a pause. George's jaw tightens just a fraction, but his voice remains steady. "I think what you are really asking is whether I think my success disqualifies me from having empathy or understanding. And I would say that is a dangerous road to go down. I grew up in Kentucky in a middle-class family. I know what it is like to struggle. Just because I have been fortunate in my career does not mean I have forgotten where I came from or that I do not care about people who are struggling now." Gayle is not letting up. "But you did marry a human rights attorney. You vacation in Italy. You move in circles that most Americans will never even glimpse. Can you honestly say you are still connected to what regular people are dealing with?" The studio feels heavier now. George takes a breath, and when he speaks again, there is an edge to his tone. "Gayle, I am going to stop you right there. What you are doing right now is a tactic I have seen 100 times. You are trying to discredit someone's point of view by attacking their circumstances rather than engaging with what they are actually saying. It is lazy journalism, and frankly, I expected better from you." The room goes silent. Gayle's expression hardens. "Lazy journalism? George, I am asking you questions that our viewers want answers to. If you find that uncomfortable, maybe that says more about you than it does about my questions." George leans forward now, matching her energy. "No, what you are doing is setting up a false choice. You are saying that either I stay silent because I am successful, or I speak up and get accused of being out of touch. There is no winning in that scenario, and that is by design. It is meant to silence people, and I am not going to play that game." Gayle does not back down. "I am not trying to silence anyone. I am trying to understand how someone in your position can claim to speak for people whose lives are nothing like yours. That is a fair question." George's voice rises slightly, controlled but forceful. "And I am telling you that I am not claiming to speak for anyone. I am speaking as someone who has a platform and chooses to use it. You know who else has a platform? Billionaires who fund politicians. Corporations that lobby for laws that hurt working families. But I do not see you grilling them about whether they are out of touch. Why is it that when someone with visibility speaks up for things like health care or workers' rights, suddenly we need to justify our right to have an opinion?" Gayle counters quickly. "Those billionaires are not sitting here right now. You are. And if you want to use your platform, you have to be willing to answer tough questions about it." George exhales sharply. "Tough questions are fine, Gayle. I welcome tough questions. What I do not welcome is the implication that because I have been successful, I should shut up and be grateful. That is not how any of this works. I have spent years using my visibility to draw attention to humanitarian crises, to support journalism, to advocate for causes I believe in, and yes, I have been lucky. But luck does not mean I lose my voice. Gayle presses on. But George, when you speak out, especially on controversial topics, do you ever worry that you are actually hurting the causes you care about? That people will dismiss the message because of the messenger? George stares at her for a moment, and the frustration is clear now. So what you are saying is that I should stay quiet because my involvement might be inconvenient? Do you hear yourself right now? You are literally arguing that people should self-censor based on how they might be perceived, rather than on the merit of what they are saying. That is textbook silencing. Gayle's voice sharpens. That is not what I am saying. I am asking you to reflect on whether your involvement is always helpful. George does not hesitate. And I am telling you that question itself is part of the problem. You are putting the burden on me to prove that I deserve to care about things, rather than questioning why we live in a society where caring about injustice is seen as suspicious if you are successful. That is backwards. The tension is palpable. Gayle regroups. Let me ask you this then. You have been very critical of certain media outlets and politicians. Do you think that kind of rhetoric is productive? Or does it just deepen the divisions we are already seeing in this country? George's response is immediate. Divisions exist because of actions, not because people point out those actions. If a politician lies, calling out that lie is not divisive. It is necessary. If a media outlet spreads misinformation, exposing that is not adding to the problem. It is trying to solve it. What you are suggesting is that we should be polite and quiet while things get worse, and I am sorry, but I am not going to do that. Gayle shifts tactics. You talk about misinformation, but you yourself have been accused of sharing stories or supporting narratives that turned out to be more complicated than they initially seemed. How do you reconcile that? George's eyes narrow. Give me an example. Gayle hesitates for just a second, then recovers. Well, there have been times when you have amplified certain voices or causes, and later it came out that there was more to the story. Do you ever feel a responsibility to be more careful before you weigh in? George leans back, his expression hard. You are being vague, Gayle, and I think that is intentional. If you have a specific example, say it. Otherwise, you are just insinuating that I am reckless without actually proving it. That is another tactic, and I am not letting it slide. Gayle's tone turns icy. I am not here to prove anything to you, George. I am here to ask questions. George's voice drops, serious and direct. And I am here to answer them, but only if they are honest questions. What you are doing right now feels like an ambush, and I do not understand why. Gayle does not flinch. An ambush? George, these are standard questions for someone in your position. If you are feeling defensive, maybe you should ask yourself why. George shakes his head slowly. No, Gayle. Standard questions would be about my work, about the film I am here to talk about the creative process. What you are doing is digging into my credibility, my motivations, my right to speak, and you are doing it in a way that feels coordinated, like you came in here with an agenda. Gayle's eyebrows raise. An agenda? You think I have an agenda? George does not hesitate. I think someone does. Whether it is you or the network or whoever prepped these questions, I do not know. But this does not feel like a conversation. It feels like a cross-examination, and I want to know why. Gayle takes a breath, and her voice becomes more measured, but no less firm. George, you are a public figure who has inserted himself into very contentious political and social debates. When you do that, you open yourself up to scrutiny. That is just how it works. You do not get to pick and choose when you want to be challenged. George leans forward again, his voice rising. I am not asking to avoid being challenged, Gayle. Challenge me on substance. Challenge me on facts. Challenge me on policy. But what you are doing is attacking my character and my standing to even have this conversation. And that is different. That is what people do when they cannot argue against the actual points being made. Gayle's voice hardens. Your character is relevant when you are asking people to trust your judgment on important issues. George's response is sharp. My character? You do not know my character. You know my public persona. You know what tabloids write about me. You know what gets clicks and ratings. But you do not actually know who I am or what I have done when cameras are not around. And yet, here you are, sitting across from me, making judgments based on assumptions. Gayle does not back down. Then tell me who you are. Tell me why we should listen to you. George's expression shifts, something between disbelief and anger. I should not have to audition for the right to have an opinion, Gayle. That is the point. You are asking me to justify my existence as a thinking, caring human being, and I refuse to do that. I refuse to sit here and perform authenticity for you or anyone else. Either engage with what I am saying or do not, but stop pretending this is about truth or accountability. This is about control. The air is thick now. The crew behind the cameras is visibly uncomfortable. Gayle takes a different approach. You talk about control. Do you think you have control over how your words and actions are interpreted by millions of people? George pauses, his jaw working. No, I do not have control over that, but I do have control over whether I stay silent when I see things that are wrong. And I choose not to stay silent, even when it is inconvenient, even when it makes people uncomfortable, even when it means sitting here and being interrogated like I am on trial. Gayle's voice cuts through. You are not on trial, George. You are on a morning talk show. George laughs, but there is no humor in it. Is that what this is? Because it feels a lot more hostile than any morning talk show I have ever been on. And I have been on a lot of them, Gayle. I know the difference between a conversation and an attack. Gayle's expression is steely. If you feel attacked by questions, maybe you need to examine why that is. George's voice drops, quieter but more intense. I feel attacked because I am being attacked. You are not asking questions to learn or to inform your audience. You are asking questions to trap me, to make me look bad, to undermine whatever credibility I might have. And the reason I know that is because you have not once, not one single time in this entire conversation, engaged with anything I have actually said. You have only questioned my right to say it. Gayle sits back slightly. That is not true. George cuts her off. It is absolutely true. I have talked about policy, about justice, about the responsibility we all have to speak up, and you have responded by questioning my wealth, my lifestyle, my motivations. You have not addressed a single substantive point I have made. So yes, Gayle, this is an attack. And I am calling it what it is. Gayle's tone becomes colder. You know what, George? Maybe the problem is not the questions. Maybe the problem is that you cannot handle being held accountable. George's eyes flash. Accountable for what, exactly? For caring? For trying to make a difference? For not sitting in my mansion and ignoring the world? What exactly am I supposed to be accountable for that justifies this kind of treatment? Gayle leans in. You are accountable for the influence you wield. You are accountable for the messages you send. You are accountable for the consequences of your words. George's voice is like steel. And who holds you accountable, Gayle? Who holds this network accountable? Who holds the people funding this network accountable? Because from where I am sitting, it seems like the standards are pretty one-sided. You can sit there and grill me about my privilege and my influence, but I do not see you turning that same scrutiny on the systems that actually create inequality and injustice. Gayle's response is immediate. We hold powerful people accountable all the time. George does not miss a beat. Do you? Or do you hold people accountable when it is safe, when it is popular, when it does not threaten the real power structures? Because that is what this feels like to me. You go after celebrities and public figures because we are easy targets, We are visible, we are accessible, and we do not have the kind of institutional power to really push back. But the people who actually run things, the people who make decisions that affect millions of lives, they get softballs, they get puff pieces, they get the benefit of the doubt. Gayle's jaw tightens. That is a pretty serious accusation. George nods. It is, and I stand by it. This industry, this whole media ecosystem, has become so focused on spectacle and controversy that it has lost sight of what journalism is supposed to be about. It is supposed to be about truth, about holding power accountable, about giving people the information they need to make informed decisions. Instead, it has become about ratings and clicks and manufactured drama. Gayle's voice is sharp now. You think this is manufactured drama? George gestures between them. I think you came into this interview with a script. I think you knew exactly what you were going to ask and exactly how you were going to frame it. And I think the goal was never to have a real conversation. The goal was to create a moment, to get a reaction, to have something to clip and share and drive traffic. Well, congratulations, Gayle. You got your moment. Gayle does not flinch. If that is what you think, why did you agree to come on the show? George's expression is hard. Because I believe in engaging, even when it is uncomfortable. Because I think walking away or refusing to participate is worse than sitting here and dealing with this. But I am not going to sit here and pretend this is something it is not. I am not going to play along with the charade. Gayle's voice is ice. The charade? George nods. Yes. The charade that this is a real interview. The charade that you actually care about my answers. The charade that any of this is in good faith. It is not, and we both know it. Gayle stares at him for a long moment. You know what I think, George? I think you are so used to being praised and celebrated that you cannot handle real pushback. I think you live in a bubble where everyone tells you how great you are, and the moment someone challenges you, you fall apart. George's laugh is bitter. Fall apart? I am sitting here, answering your questions, calling out your tactics, and refusing to be intimidated. If that is falling apart, then I do not think you know what that phrase means. Gayle's tone does not soften. You are deflecting. Every time I ask you something difficult, you turn it around and make it about me or about the media. That is not answering questions, George. That is avoiding them. George's voice is controlled fury now. I have answered every single question you have asked, Gayle. What I have not done is let you twist my words or frame the conversation in a way that serves your narrative, and that is what is really bothering you. You are not used to people pushing back. You are used to people being polite and deferential and letting you set the terms. Well, I am not going to do that. Gayle's eyes narrow. Setting terms? George, this is my show. I set the terms. That is how this works. George's response is immediate and forceful. No, Gayle, that is not how conversations work. That is how interrogations work. That is how power plays work. But if you want to have an actual dialogue, it requires two people engaging honestly, not one person trying to dominate the other. Gayle's voice rises slightly. I am not trying to dominate anyone. I am trying to do my job. George shakes his head firmly. Your job is to inform your audience. Your job is to ask questions that lead to understanding. Your job is not to score points or make your guest look bad. And that is what you have been doing this entire time. Gayle leans forward, her voice sharp. You keep saying that, but you have not given me a single example of a question that was unfair. George's voice is incredulous. Are you serious right now? You questioned my right to have opinions because I am successful. You accused me of being out of touch without any evidence. You insinuated I spread misinformation without providing a single example. You suggested my involvement in causes hurts those causes. Every single one of those questions was designed to undermine me, not to explore ideas or understand perspectives. Gayle's expression hardens. Those are legitimate questions that reflect concerns people have. George's voice gets louder. What people, Gayle? Who are these people? Because it sounds to me like you are hiding behind this vague notion of public concern to justify your own line of questioning. If people have concerns, tell me who they are and what specifically they are concerned about. Otherwise, you are just using them as a shield. Gayle does not back down. I do not need to justify my questions to you. George's response is like a whip. Then do not expect me to justify my existence to you. You want to ask me about my work, about my projects, about my ideas. I am here for that. But if you want to put me on trial for daring to have a voice, then we are done. Gayle's voice is steel. We are done when I say we are done. George stands up abruptly, and the movement sends a shock through the studio. He is still wearing his microphone, and his voice carries clearly. No, Gayle, we are done now. I came here in good faith to talk about my film, to have a conversation, to engage with your audience. But what I got instead was an ambush. And I do not care how powerful you are, or how big this network is. I am not going to sit here and be disrespected. Gayle remains seated, her voice cold but controlled. Disrespected? George, I asked you questions. If you cannot handle that, then maybe you should not be in the public eye. George's face is flushed now, his voice shaking with controlled anger. I have been in the public eye for decades, Gayle. I have handled criticism, scrutiny, controversy, all of it. What I have not done is sat quietly while someone pretends to be a journalist while really just trying to tear me down for sport. There is a difference between holding someone accountable and going after them. And you crossed that line a long time ago in this conversation. Gayle stands now, too, facing him. I crossed a line? You are the one making accusations, questioning my integrity, suggesting I have some kind of agenda. George's voice is unwavering. Because you do. I do not know what it is or where it comes from, but this was not a normal interview. You know it, I know it, and everyone watching knows it. Gayle's voice cuts through. What everyone watching knows is that you could not handle tough questions and you are running away. George's laugh is harsh. Running away? I am standing right here, Gayle. I am not hiding. I am not deflecting. I am calling out exactly what is happening. And if that makes you uncomfortable, if that disrupts your script, then good, because maybe it is time someone said what everyone is thinking. Gayle's expression is icy. And what is everyone thinking, George? Please, enlighten me. George's voice drops, serious and direct. That journalism has become a game. That interviews are not about learning or understanding anymore. They are about creating viral moments and controversy. That the people sitting in your chair are more interested in their own profiles than in actually serving the public. That we have traded substance for spectacle, and everyone is worse off for it. Gayle's response is immediate. That is a pretty sweeping indictment from someone who makes his living off spectacle. George's eyes flash. I make my living telling stories. Stories that sometimes challenge people, that make them think, that reflect the world back at them in ways that matter. What you are doing right now is not storytelling, Gayle. It is something else entirely. Gayle's voice is tight. And what is that exactly? George pauses, then speaks carefully, but firmly. It is weaponizing your platform. It is using your position to go after someone, not because of what they have done wrong, but because you can. Because it gets attention. Because it feeds a machine that runs on conflict and division. Gayle's jaw sets. I am not weaponizing anything. I am asking questions that need to be asked. George's voice rises again. No, you are asking questions designed to make me look bad regardless of how I answer them. That is not journalism, Gayle. That is something much uglier. Gayle steps closer, her voice low and intense. You do not get to come on my show and tell me how to do my job. George does not back away, and you do not get to treat me like I am guilty of something just for having opinions and using my voice. I have done nothing wrong, Gayle. Nothing. I have tried to be a force for good in the world. I have tried to help people. I have tried to shine a light on injustice. And if that somehow makes me a target in your eyes, then something is deeply broken. Gayle's voice is sharp. What is broken is your ego. You cannot handle the fact that not everyone worships you. George's response is immediate and fierce. This has nothing to do with ego. This has to do with respect. This has to do with basic human decency. You can ask me hard questions without being cruel. You can challenge my ideas without attacking my character. But you chose not to do that. You chose to make this personal, and that is on you, not me. Gayle's expression is hard. I made nothing personal. You are the one who took it there. George's voice is shaking now with barely contained fury. I took it there? Gayle, you have spent this entire interview questioning everything about me except the actual substance of what I do and believe. You have made it personal from the first question, and now you want to act like I am the problem for calling it out? That is gaslighting, and I am not going to accept it. Gayle's voice is ice cold. Gaslighting? Now you are really reaching. George's voice is firm. I am stating facts. You attacked me, I defended myself, and now you are trying to make it seem like I am being unreasonable. That is the definition of gaslighting. And I am done with it. Gayle crosses her arms. So what are you going to do, George? Walk out? Prove my point? George looks at her for a long moment, and when he speaks, his voice is quiet but carries enormous weight. Your point was never valid, Gayle. You did not have a point. You had an agenda. And yes, I am walking out. Not because I cannot handle the heat, but because I refuse to participate in whatever this is. I refuse to give legitimacy to this kind of behavior. And I hope anyone watching this understands what they just witnessed. Gayle's voice follows him. What they witnessed is a celebrity who cannot handle accountability. George turns back, his voice ringing through the studio. What they witnessed is someone standing up for themselves when they are being treated unfairly. What they witnessed is someone refusing to play a game that is rigged from the start. And what they witnessed is the difference between real courage and performing courage. You sit behind that desk and pretend to speak truth to power, but when someone actually pushes back, when someone actually challenges you, you cannot handle it. So, who is really afraid here, Gayle? Who is really running from the truth? The silence that follows is deafening. George reaches up, removes his microphone, and places it carefully on his chair. He looks at Gayle one more time, and there is something almost sad in his expression now, beneath the anger. I hope this was worth it, he says quietly. I hope whatever you were trying to accomplish here was worth burning this bridge, worth damaging your credibility, worth showing everyone exactly what kind of interviewer you are. Because you cannot take this back, Gayle. This is who you are now. Gayle's voice is barely controlled. Get out. George nods slowly. I am already gone. He walks off the set, and the cameras stay on Gayle, who is standing there, her expression unreadable. The crew does not know what to do. There is a long, awkward moment before someone finally calls for a commercial break. So what did you just witness? Was this a journalist doing her job, or something else entirely? Was George right to walk out, or should he have stayed and finished the interview? This is the conversation everyone is going to be having, and the implications go far beyond just one heated exchange on a morning show. This is about how we treat public figures, how we conduct interviews, and what we expect from the people who have platforms and influence. Make sure you subscribe to stay updated on all the fallout from this incredible moment, and drop a comment below. Do you think George Clooney was justified in walking out, or did he overreact?